Billionaire was blind his whole life. Until a poor girl did something that changed. William Thompson stumbled again on the marble steps at the entrance of his mansion. After 40 years living there, he still couldn't quite judge the height of each step. His cane slipped from his hand and clattered down the stairs, the noise echoing through the quiet garden. That's when he felt two small hands touch his right arm. A sweet, childish voice said something that left him completely speechless. "Did you hurt yourself? Can I help get your cane?" William stood frozen. In 4 decades, no one had ever approached him like that, with such naturalness and kindness. People always spoke to him with fear, respect, or self-interest. But that voice was different. "Who's there?" he asked, turning his face toward the voice. "It's me, Emma. I sell little flowers over there on the corner. I saw you fall and came to help," the child replied, already going down the steps to fetch the cane. The businessman felt a tightening in his chest. No one had ever worried whether he was hurt. Martha, his housekeeper, was surely inside the house and hadn't even noticed what happened. The drivers and security always kept a respectful distance, but this unknown child had dropped everything to help him. "How old are you?" asked William, still trying to process the situation. 5 years old, replied Emma, climbing the steps again and placing the cane in his hand. "My grandma said we always have to help those in need." "Is your grandmother here?" "No, she's at home. She's a little sick and can't work, so I sell the flowers, but it's close by here. Don't you worry." William felt something he hadn't felt in years, a mix of admiration and sadness. That little girl, only 5 years old, had more courage and kindness than all the adults he knew. She was working to take care of her sick grandmother while he lived isolated in his mansion, complaining about life. "Would you like to come in for some juice?" he offered, surprising himself. "Really, that's so cool," exclaimed Emma with contagious joy. When William opened the main door, Martha appeared immediately in the hall. She was a 60-year-old woman, always serious and efficient. She had worked for the Thompson family for nearly 30 years and knew all of her employers' habits. "Mr. William, who is this child?" asked Martha, with a tone of disapproval. "This is Emma. She helped me when I stumbled on the steps. She's going to have some juice with us," explained William, walking toward the living room. "Sir, with all due respect, but we know nothing about this girl. It's not prudent." "Martha," interrupted William with a firm voice, "she stays." The housekeeper sighed but said nothing more. In all these years, she had rarely seen her employer so determined about something not related to business. In the living room, Emma was enchanted by the surroundings. She described everything she saw with an enthusiasm that made William smile for the first time in a long while. "Wow, what a big room. And this couch is really soft. These paintings are pretty, but kind of sad. Why is everyone making such serious faces in the pictures?" William laughed. "They're old family portraits. People didn't used to smile in pictures back in the old days." "What a shame. Smiling is really nice. My grandma always says that even when we're sad, we have to try to smile a little every day." Martha brought orange juice for Emma and served coffee for William. The girl drank her juice, making little sounds of satisfaction that drew another smile from the businessman. "And do you live here all alone in this huge house?" asked Emma. "With Martha, but yes, practically alone." "Wow, that must be really lonely. My house is small, but there's always noise. Grandma is always talking with me, telling stories." "Do you like stories?" William stopped to think. Ooh. How long had it been since he'd heard a story? "How long has it been since I talked about something other than financial reports and contracts? It's been a long time since I've heard a story. Would you like me to tell one? My grandma knows so many." And so Emma began to tell the story of a princess who helped all the animals in the forest. Her sweet, animated voice filled the room with an energy William hadn't felt in decades. He found himself completely absorbed in the narrative, imagining every detail the girl described. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now, continuing. When Emma finished the story, Martha appeared in the room again. "Mr. William, it's time for you to review the company reports." "The reports can wait a little while," he replied, surprising the housekeeper once more. "But sir, you never delay your schedule." Today is different, said William, turning his attention back to Emma. Can you come back tomorrow? Yes, I can. After I sell all the flowers, I'll come here. I can bring more stories. I would love that. Emma said goodbye with a hug for William, yet another gesture that moved him deeply. How long had it been since someone hugged him with genuine affection? After the girl left, Martha stayed in the room, clearly bothered. Mr. William, don't you think this could be dangerous? We know nothing about this child or her family. Martha, she's just a kind little girl who cared about me. I don't see any problem. But what if she tells other people about the house, about your routines? You've always been so careful about your privacy. William paused to reflect. Martha was right about his privacy, but for the first time in years, it didn't seem important. That little girl's company had brought something into his life he didn't even know was missing. Let her come back, Martha. It's good for me. That night, William had trouble sleeping. He kept thinking about his conversation with Emma, about her maturity despite being just 5 years old, about how she cared for her sick grandmother. He also thought about his own childhood, abruptly interrupted at age 7 when he lost his sight, due to a devastating fever. He remembered the years that followed, the dozens of failed surgeries, the physical and emotional pain, the gradual isolation. His family had money for the best doctors, but nothing worked. Over time, he had given up trying and focused solely on business. The next day, William eagerly awaited Emma's arrival. Around 4 in the afternoon, he heard the doorbell. Martha went to answer and soon returned. Mr. William, it's that girl from yesterday. Please let her in. Emma came running into the room, even more excited than the day before. Hi, Mr. William. I brought a new story today. My grandma told me about a girl who discovered a magical garden. A magical garden? That sounds interesting. Yes, can I tell it? But first, can I see your house? It's so big. William hesitated for a moment. He had never thought about showing the house to anyone, but there was something about Emma that made him want to share. Of course, let's take a tour. He stood up and began walking through the house, with Emma at his side, describing everything she saw. She had a unique way of seeing things, finding beauty in details that other people would probably overlook. This hallway is as long as a tunnel, and these doors are really tall. There must be giants living here, Emma joked, making William laugh. When they reached the library, Emma was amazed. Wow, so many books. Have you read them all? Not exactly in the way you imagine, replied William. I have some in Braille and others in audio. What's Braille? William patiently explained how reading works for blind people, guiding Emma's hand over the raised dots of a book. That's amazing. You're very smart, said Emma with genuine admiration. It's not about being smart, it's just a different way of reading. Even so, I think you're very clever, and very nice too. During the tour, they reached the attic. William rarely went up there, but Emma insisted on seeing it. Up there, among old furniture covered with sheets, she found a colourful box. What a beautiful box! What's inside? William felt the box and recognized it immediately. It was his old toy box, stored away for over 40 years. They were my childhood toys. Can I look? With a heavy heart, William opened the box. Emma began to describe each item she found. Little cars, lead soldiers, a worn-out teddy bear. You really loved these toys, didn't you? You can tell they were very loved. At the bottom of the box, Emma found an envelope with old photographs. There are pictures here. Can I see? William hesitated. He knew they were pictures of himself from when he was a child before he went blind. Few people had ever seen those images. Yes, you can look. Wow! You were a boy who looked a lot like me, all smiley. And what beautiful eyes you had, blue like the sky. William's heart raced. No one had commented on his eyes in decades. Everyone avoided talking about his blindness, as if it were a forbidden subject. What do you mean, had? Asked Emma, confused. William explained about the accident, the fever that left him blind. Emma listened in silence, holding his hand. That's so sad, she said finally. But you're still handsome. And your eyes are still blue, you know. They just don't see, but they're still beautiful. Tears streamed down William's face. How long had it been since he last cried? Emma dried his tears with her small hands. Don't be sad. I bet your eyes will see again one day. My grandma always says miracles happen when we least expect them. At that moment, Martha appeared in the attic. Mr. William, Dr. Richard is here for your routine checkup. William had completely forgotten about the monthly medical appointment. Dr. Richard Parker had been his personal physician for over 15 years, a competent and discreet man. Emma, I need to go down for a doctor's appointment. Can you wait in the living room? Of course. Can I play with the toys from the little box? Yes, you can. William went down to the living room where Dr. Richard was already waiting with his equipment. Good afternoon, William. How have you been feeling? Fine, doctor. No changes. The doctor performed the routine exams, checking his blood pressure, heart, and reflexes. When he got to the eyes, he did some tests with flashlights and specific equipment. William, I need to talk to you about something important. What is it, doctor? I received information about a new treatment that could help people with your type of blindness. It's an experimental procedure, but the results have been promising. William felt a chill in his stomach. He had been through so many failed treatments, so many painful surgeries that only brought false hope. Doctor, you know my position on this. I don't want to go through any more surgeries. I understand your reluctance, but this technique is completely different from the previous ones. It uses laser technology and microscopic implants. The success rate has been high. The answer is no, doctor. I won't submit to it anymore. William, at least think about it. You're still young, you have your whole life ahead of you. At that moment, Emma came running down the stairs, holding one of the old cars. Mr. William, I found the most beautiful car. Can I play with it? Of course you can, replied William, his voice changing completely when speaking to the girl. Dr. Richard observed the interaction with curiosity. And who is this young lady? This is Emma, a very special friend. Hi, doctor, greeted Emma politely. Do you take care of Mr. William? Yes, I take care of his health. That's great. He's really nice, isn't he? Yesterday he told me he can't see, but even so he's the smartest man I know. The doctor smiled. It's true, he's very intelligent, and who knows, maybe one day he'll regain his sight. Really? Exclaimed Emma, her eyes shining. That would be amazing. Then he'd be able to see how beautiful the world is. William felt uncomfortable with the direction of the conversation. Doctor, thank you for the appointment. See you next month. William, think about what we discussed. The offer remains open. After the doctor left, Emma got excited about the possibility of William regaining his sight. Why don't you want to try, Mr. William? If the doctor said it might work. Emma, I tried many times when I was younger. It only brought pain and frustration. But you were a child. Now you're an adult and stronger. It's not that simple. My grandma always says that we should never give up on our dreams. What was your dream when you were a child? William stopped to think. How many years had it been since he'd thought about dreams? I wanted to be an airplane pilot, he replied, surprising himself by revealing something so personal. That's so cool. There's still time. Emma, blind people can't be pilots. But if you regain your sight, it's better not to get our hopes up. Emma was quiet for a moment, then approached and held William's hand. You know what I think? I think you're afraid. Afraid of what? Afraid to dream again. My grandma says that sometimes we're more afraid of hope than of sadness. The girl's words hit William like a punch in the stomach. She was only 5 years old, but she had just perfectly summarized what he felt. In the following days, Emma continued visiting William every afternoon. She brought stories, games, and a contagious joy that began to transform the atmosphere of the mansion. Even Martha noticed the change in her employer's mood. One afternoon, while playing in the garden, Emma found a water gun left behind by the gardeners. That's so cool. Can I play with it? You can, but be careful not to wet anything important, William warned. Emma filled the water gun from the garden faucet and began to play, aiming at the plants and trees. William laughed at the sound of the water and the girl's joyful shouts. Mr. William, do you want to play too? Me? I'm not sure that's a good idea. Come on, it'll be fun. William gave in to the girl's insistence. How long had it been since he'd played? How long since he'd had such simple, pure fun? Emma guided him through the garden, explaining where to aim. They laughed together like William hadn't laughed in decades. The girl even got his suit a little wet, but he didn't mind. "This is the best," shouted Emma, running across the grass. At that moment, Martha appeared on the porch with a horrified expression. "Mr. William, you have an important meeting in 20 minutes, and you're all wet." "What meeting?" asked William, still laughing. "With the company lawyers. They're coming here to review the contracts for the new investment." William remembered the meeting. It was indeed important, involving millions of dollars. "Emma, I need to change quickly. Can you wait for me in the living room?" "Of course." William rushed to his room and changed as fast as he could. When he came down, the 3 lawyers had already arrived, and Martha had welcomed them into the living room. Emma was sitting on the sofa playing quietly with a toy car. "Good afternoon, Mr. William," greeted the lead attorney, Mr. Michael Wilson. "We've brought the contracts for your approval." "Good afternoon. You may begin." The lawyers spread the papers on the coffee table and began explaining the details. William focused on the conversation but noticed that Emma was listening attentively, even without understanding. "So, Mr. William, if you sign here, the $50 million investment will—" At that moment, Emma got up from the sofa and, without anyone noticing, still had the water gun in her hand. In an awkward movement, she stumbled and the water pistol sprayed water directly onto the papers scattered on the table. "No!" shouted Mr. Michael, watching the documents getting soaked. "My goodness!" exclaimed Martha, rushing to help. William heard the commotion and immediately understood what had happened. "Sorry, sorry!" cried Emma, frightened by the adult's reaction. "For these documents took weeks to prepare," shouted another lawyer. "They'll have to be completely redone. Mr. William, this will delay the investment by at least 2 weeks. We might miss the opportunity," said Mr. Michael, clearly irritated. William stood up slowly. Emma was crying, apologizing repeatedly. "Mr. William," continued the lead attorney, "with all due respect, but this situation is unacceptable. We can't have children disrupting business meetings of this importance. Do you agree that this girl can no longer come here?" added another lawyer. William felt anger growing inside him. On one hand, he knew the mistake could cost a lot of money. On the other, he saw Emma crying, a 5-year-old child who had had an accident. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. "Emma, come here," said William, extending his hand. The girl approached, still sobbing. "It was an accident, Mr. William. I swear it was an accident." "I know, sweetheart. Accidents happen." William turned to the lawyers, his voice changing tone. "Gentlemen, you are in my home, and no one yells at Emma here." "But Mr. William," tried to protest Mr. Michael, the losses will be handled, but the way you treated a child is unacceptable." "Sir, we were just concerned about the business. Business is important, but it doesn't justify treating a child that way." Mr. Michael took a deep breath, trying to control himself. "Mr. William, perhaps it would be best to establish some rules for future meetings, without the presence of visitors." William felt a rage he hadn't felt in years. "You know what? I'm starting to rethink our partnership." "What do you mean?" asked the lawyer, alarmed. "If you can't respect people in my own home, how can I trust you to respect our clients and employees?" "Mr. William, you're being a bit emotional. It's natural after an accident like this." "Emotional?" William took a step forward. "For 40 years I've made purely rational decisions in business. But for the first time, I'm realizing that might be a mistake." The lawyers exchanged glances, clearly uncomfortable. "Gentlemen," continued William, "you may leave. I'll review whether I really want to proceed with this investment." "Mr. William, this project represents a unique opportunity." "Good afternoon, gentlemen," said William categorically. After the lawyers left, visibly irritated, William knelt beside Emma. "Stop crying, sweetheart. Nothing serious happened. But I ruined your important meeting." "Emma, you didn't ruin anything. The important people in my life are those who respect me and respect those I love." "You love me?" asked Emma, her eyes still wet. "Very much," replied William, hugging the girl. Martha watched the scene from the doorway, completely perplexed. In 30 years working for William, she had never seen him confront business partners that way. That night, after Emma had left, Martha sought William in his office. "Mr. William, may I speak with you?" "Of course, Martha. Have a seat." "Sir, I want to apologize for what happened today. I should have kept an eye on the girl during the meeting. Martha, it wasn't your fault. And honestly, I don't regret what happened." "What do you mean, sir?" William sighed deeply. "Martha, how long have you worked for me?" "Almost 30 years, sir." "And in all that time, have you ever seen me truly happy?" Martha hesitated before answering. "You've always been a reserved person." "That's not an answer, Martha. When was the last time you saw me really smile?" The housekeeper thought for a long moment. "Honestly, sir, I don't remember." "Exactly. And do you know when I smiled today? When I was playing in the garden with Emma, for the first time in decades I felt alive. I understand, sir, but the business has always been my priority, Martha. But what has that brought me? Money, yes, but also loneliness, bitterness, and isolation. Are you saying you're going to change how you work?" "I'm saying that maybe it's time to rethink my priorities." Martha fell silent, processing her employer's words. "Martha, can I ask you a personal question?" "Of course, sir." "Why did you never marry? Why dedicate your whole life to taking care of me?" The question took Martha by surprise. She lowered her eyes, clearly uncomfortable. "It's my job, sir." "But it goes beyond the job, doesn't it? You could have left, had your own life, your own family." "Mr. William..." "Martha, we're practically family. You can be honest with me." The housekeeper took a deep breath before answering. "Do you remember when I started working here? I was 30 years old and had just lost someone very important." "I didn't know that." "I was engaged, sir, but my fiancé, he left 2 weeks before the wedding. He couldn't handle the idea of marrying someone who took care of a blind person. He said it would be a limited life with no prospects." William felt a heaviness in his heart. "Martha, I didn't know. I'm sorry." "You don't need to apologize, sir. In fact, taking care of you gave me purpose when I had lost all hope. It made me feel useful again. But you sacrificed your own happiness for me." "It wasn't a sacrifice, sir. It was a choice. And I've never regretted it." "But now? Don't you feel like you missed opportunities?" Martha smiled sadly. "Mr. William, can I be honest? Seeing you smile today because of Emma made me happier than anything in the last few years, because I finally saw that you can be happy." "Martha, and if a 5-year-old child could bring that joy into your life, imagine what could happen if you open your heart to more people." William was silent for a long moment. "Martha, what if I told you I'm seriously thinking about having that surgery?" "The eye surgery?" "Yes. Dr. Richard said there's a new technique." "Sir, that would be wonderful. But what made you change your mind?" "Emma. She made me realize that maybe I'm missing important things because I'm afraid to try. And I want to be able to see her little face." Martha smiled with tears in her eyes. "You're making the right decision." "But I'm scared, Martha. What if it doesn't work? What if it's just another disappointment?" "Mr. William, better to try and fail than to never try and always wonder, what if?" The next day, Emma arrived earlier than usual. She seemed worried. "Mr. William, are you mad at me because of yesterday?" "Of course not, dear. Why would I be?" "Because I ruined your meeting and those men got really mad." "Emma, come here. I need to tell you something." William had her sit next to him on the sofa. "Those men weren't good for me. They only cared about money, not about people. You helped me realize that." "Really? Really, in fact, I want to thank you." "Thank me?" "You're teaching me very important things, Emma, about friendship, about joy, about what really matters in life." "That's so cool. My grandma always says we learn from each other. Your grandmother is very wise. Speaking of which, how is she?" Little Emma's face grew sad. "She's getting worse, Mr. William. Last night she had an attack and the neighbor had to call the doctor." "What kind of attack?" She couldn't breathe properly. The doctor said she needs surgery, but it's very expensive. William felt his heart tighten. How much does this surgery cost? I'm not sure, but Grandma was crying when the doctor told her the price. She said she'd never be able to save that much money. Emma, would you like me to talk to your grandmother? You'd do that? Of course. How about we go visit her now? Really? You want to meet my grandma? Very much. Emma beamed at the idea. William asked Martha to prepare the car, and they went together to the girls' house, which was just a few blocks from the mansion in a simpler neighborhood. The house was small and modest, but very clean and tidy. Emma ran to open the door. Grandma, I brought Mr. William to meet you. Mrs. Ruth, Emma's grandmother, was a 70-year-old woman with graying hair and kind eyes. Despite her illness, she maintained a dignified and welcoming posture. Emma, you shouldn't have bothered the gentleman, said Mrs. Ruth, clearly intimidated. Not at all, interrupted William. The one being bothered is you, having me over without warning. Mr. William, welcome to our humble home. Please have a seat. William sat on the simple but comfortable sofa. The house smelled of flowers and cleanliness, with crochet work on the armchairs and pictures of Emma scattered on the walls. Mrs. Ruth, Emma told me you're having some health problems. Oh, sir, it's just problems of old age, nothing to worry about. Grandma, Emma intervened, Mr. William is really nice. You can tell him about the surgery. Mrs. Ruth hesitated, clearly uncomfortable discussing financial matters. Mr. William, I don't want to bother you with our problems. Mrs. Ruth, Emma has become very special to me. Your problems are my problems too. The woman took a deep breath. It's heart surgery, sir. The doctors say it's urgent, but, well, the cost is beyond our means. How much is it? $200,000, sir. To us, it might as well be money from another world. William didn't hesitate for a second. Mrs. Ruth, I'm going to pay for this surgery. What? Exclaimed grandmother and granddaughter simultaneously. You heard correctly. I'll pay for the surgery. Mr. William, I can't accept this. It's too much money. Mrs. Ruth, Emma brought joy and hope into my life when I needed it most. Allowing me to take care of you is the least I can do. Tears streamed down the woman's face. Mr. William, how can I ever thank you? By getting better and taking care of Emma. That's the only payment I want. Emma jumped into William's lap, hugging him tightly. You're the best friend in the world. At that moment, William made a decision that would change everything. Mrs. Ruth, may I ask you a personal question? Of course, sir. Did you work in healthcare? Yes, sir. I was a nurse for 40 years until I retired. At which hospital? Mercy General Hospital, sir. I worked mainly in the pediatric wing. William felt a shiver down his spine. Pediatric wing? Since when? Since 1975, sir. I retired in 2015. Mrs. Ruth, do you remember a boy who was admitted in 1982, 7 years old, high fever, vision loss? Mrs. Ruth grew thoughtful. Sir, I cared for many children over all those years. The last name was Thompson, William Thompson. Mrs. Ruth's expression changed completely. She put her hand to her chest as if startled. My goodness, you're little William? You remember me? How could I forget? You were hospitalized for 3 months. You were such a brave child, but so frightened at the same time. William felt deep emotion overwhelming him. You took care of me? I did indeed, my dear. You were my favorite patient. Always polite, always trying not to be any trouble, even with so much pain. Mrs. Ruth, you used to ask me if you would ever see again, and I always said the doctors were doing their very best. I remember a very caring nurse, a sweet voice that comforted me during the hard nights. That was me, my dear. How many nights I spent by your side when you woke up frightened. Emma looked from one to the other, trying to understand the conversation. You guys, did you already know each other? In a way, yes, replied William, still processing the discovery. Mrs. Ruth, does that mean... Is it a coincidence that Emma... William, I don't believe in coincidences. I believe people come into our lives when we need them the most. You're right. And you know what else? I kept something of yours all these years. What do you mean? Mrs. Ruth stood up and went to an old cabinet. From there, she took out a yellowed folder. Your medical records, William. Back then, when you were discharged, there was an administrative error, and they ended up with me. I always wanted to return them, but I never knew how to find you. William felt his heart race. My medical records, but why keep them? Because I always had a feeling that one day they would be important. Mrs. Ruth opened the folder and began to read. William, did you know that back then the doctors said your blindness could be temporary? What do you mean temporary? According to the reports, the damage caused by the fever wasn't permanent to the optic nerve. They believed that with time and the proper treatments, you could recover at least some of your sight. That's impossible. I had dozens of tests afterward. But William, medicine has advanced a lot in the last 40 years. Treatments that didn't exist back then are now routine. William fell silent, processing the information. Mrs. Ruth, are you saying that? I'm saying that maybe there is still hope. Emma, who had been quiet listening to the conversation, suddenly exclaimed, I knew it! I knew you would see again. Emma, it's not that simple. But Grandma worked with children. She understands these things. William turned to Mrs. Ruth. Do you really believe there's a possibility? William, I'm not a doctor. But as a nurse, I've seen many cases the doctors considered impossible that turned out surprisingly well. And what do you suggest? See a modern specialist. Show them these records. Get new tests with today's equipment. Mrs. Ruth, I have to confess something. My doctor already suggested an experimental treatment, but I refused. Why? Fear. Fear of going through it all again and having it not work. Emma held William's hand. But Mr. William, what if it does work? What if you can see all the beautiful things in the world? And what if it doesn't work, Emma? Then we'll still be friends just the same. But at least you tried. Mrs. Ruth came closer and put her hand on William's shoulder. My dear, 40 years ago you were a frightened child who needed to trust the adults. Today you are a strong man who can make your own decisions. But what if... William, interrupted Mrs. Ruth, how many times in life do we get a second chance to make a dream come true? William was silent for a long moment. Finally, he turned to Emma. If I have this surgery, do you promise you'll be by my side through the whole process? I promise, exclaimed Emma, jumping for joy. Then I'll call Dr. Richard still today. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. The following week, William went through a battery of medical tests. Dr. Richard was impressed with the old records and called in other specialists for consultations. During this period, Emma spent even more time with William, being his source of courage when fear threatened to overwhelm him. Mr. William, are you nervous? She asked, noticing his tension during an appointment. A little, yes. Do you want me to hold your hand? I really do. Emma's small hand in his brought a comfort William had never felt before. It was as if all the strength and hope of the little girl passed to him through that simple touch. The test results were surprising. Dr. Richard called William for a private conversation. William, the news is better than we expected. How so, Doctor? Your optic nerves are in much better condition than we imagined. Current technology can really make a difference. What are the chances of success? 70% chance of partial vision recovery, maybe even more. William felt a mixture of hope and terror. And the surgery? It's a delicate procedure, but you're in excellent physical condition. The biggest risk is really not achieving the expected result. Doctor, if I decide to do it, when would it be? We can schedule it for next week if you want. William left the appointment in a state of shock, 70% chance. It was much more than he had ever hoped for. When he got home, Emma was waiting for him in the living room, playing with the old toys. So, Mr. William, what did the doctor say? William sat next to her and told her everything. Emma was overjoyed. 70% is a lot. It's almost certain. It's not quite like that, Emma. There's still a 30% chance it won't work. But what about the 70% chance it will work? That's much more. The girl's simple logic made William smile. You're right. So you're going to do it? Yes, I am. I scheduled it for Monday. Emma jumped for joy and hugged William tightly. I knew it. I knew you'd be brave. On the weekend before the surgery, Emma organized a surprise party for William. With the help of Martha and Mrs. Ruth, she decorated the room with balloons and prepared a cake. "Surprise!" she shouted when William came down for dinner. "Emma, what is this?" "A good luck party for your surgery." Martha appeared with the cake lit with candles. "It was all Emma's idea, Mr. William." "My dear, you didn't have to." "Of course I did. It's a special occasion." During the party, each person said something special to William. Martha said she was proud of his courage. Mrs. Ruth said he had always been a special boy and still was. When it was Emma's turn, she held William's hands. "Mr. William, I want you to know that you're already perfect just the way you are. If the surgery works, it will be wonderful. If it doesn't, we'll still be the best friends in the world." William felt tears streaming down his face. "Emma, you are the most important person in my life." "You are in mine too." On the morning of the surgery, William woke up nervous. Emma arrived early to accompany him to the hospital. "I brought something for you," she said, handing him a small package. "What is it?" William opened it and found the teddy bear from her toy box. "It's for good luck. My grandma said childhood objects bring protection." "Emma, and I also brought this." She placed something in his hand. It was a little flower she had picked especially. "So you can smell the flowers and remember that the world is beautiful." William couldn't hold back his tears. "Thank you, my dear." At the hospital, Emma insisted on staying in the waiting room throughout the entire surgery. Martha and Mrs. Ruth stayed with her. The surgery lasted 4 hours. They were the longest 4 hours of William's life. But knowing that Emma was waiting for him gave him strength to face every moment. When he finally woke up in recovery, the first thing he heard was Dr. Richard's voice. "William, can you hear me?" "Yes, doctor." "The surgery was a success. Now we need to wait for the recovery to remove the bandages." "How long?" "1 week. I know it's hard to wait, but it's essential for the treatment's success." In the following days, Emma never left William's side. She told stories, made jokes, and kept his spirits up during the long wait. "Mr. William, I'm so anxious to see your eyes working," she said every day. "And I'm anxious to see you for the first time," William replied. "What do you think I look like?" "I think you're the prettiest girl in the world, with a smile that lights up any room. And if I'm not as pretty as you imagine?" "Emma, you're beautiful on the inside. And that's what matters. My grandma always says that true beauty comes from the heart. Your grandmother is right." Finally, the day came to remove the bandages. Dr. Richard was optimistic, but warned that the vision would be gradual. "William, don't expect to see perfectly right away. The brain needs to readjust after 40 years. "I understand, doctor." "Are you ready?" William held Emma's hand. "I'm ready." The doctor began carefully removing the bandages. William kept his eyes closed. "Now, William, open your eyes very slowly." William opened his eyes slowly. At first, he only saw shadows and light. Then, the shapes began to become more defined. "I can see shadows," he said, emotional. "That's normal. Keep looking." Gradually, the vision became clearer. William could make out Dr. Richard's face. "Doctor, I can see you." "Excellent, and now look to the side." William turned his head and saw Martha smiling with tears in her eyes. "Martha," he whispered. "Hello, Mr. William," she said, crying with joy. "You're exactly how I imagined." Then William looked to the other side and saw Mrs. Ruth. "Mrs. Ruth, after all these years." "Hello, my dear William." Finally, William looked forward and saw Emma for the first time. The girl was sitting on the edge of the bed, her eyes shining with emotion. She was exactly as he had imagined, and at the same time more beautiful than any image he could create. Curly brown hair, big expressive eyes, a smile that truly lit up the room. "Emma," said William, his voice choked up. "Hi, Mr. William, can you see me?" "I can, my dear, and you're even more beautiful than I imagined." Emma jumped off the bed and threw herself into William's arms. "You did it! You did it!" William hugged her, now able to see every detail of the face he had learned to love only through touch. "Emma, thank you for giving me courage. Thank you for letting me be a part of your life." Dr. Richards smiled, moved by the scene. William, your vision will continue to improve in the coming weeks, but from what I see, the surgery was a complete success. In the following weeks, William marveled at each visual discovery. Seeing Emma's smile, the colors of the flowers she sold, the friendly face of Martha, the mansion where he had lived for 40 years. But the greatest discovery was realizing that his vision improved mainly during moments of genuine joy with Emma. When they played in the garden, when she told stories, when they simply talked. You know, Emma, I think you were right from the start. About what? About miracles happening when we least expect them. I didn't know I said that. Yes, you did, and you were right. One day, while they were playing with the water gun in the garden, William noticed that his vision was completely clear. He could see every drop of water sparkling in the sun, every expression of joy on Emma's face. Emma, come here. What is it? I can see you perfectly. Every detail, every color, every movement. Really? How wonderful! Do you know what this means? What? It means that maybe it's time to make another dream come true. What dream? William smiled, gazing at the blue sky above them. What if I got my pilot's license? Really? You're going to be a real pilot? I'm going to try, and you'll fly with me on the first flight. Promise? I promise. In that moment, William realized his journey was just beginning. He had regained not only his sight, but the ability to dream, to love, to connect with other people. Months later, William began flight lessons. It was difficult, but every challenge was met with the determination Emma had taught him. He also transformed part of his fortune into a foundation to help children in vulnerable situations. The first project was a community center in the neighborhood where Emma lived. Why do you want to build the center here? Asked Emma during a walk through the neighborhood. Because this is where I learned the most important lessons of my life. What lessons? That true wealth isn't in what we have, but in the people we love. That courage isn't about not being afraid, but facing fear for love, and that sometimes a 5-year-old child can teach an adult more than all the books in the world. You're very smart, Mr. William. Actually, Emma, you're my teacher. On the day of the community center's inauguration, William was visibly nervous. It would be the first time he would speak publicly about his personal transformation. I'm nervous for you, said Emma, adjusting his tie. Why? Because you're going to speak to a lot of people who don't know you. What if they don't understand how nice you are? Emma, do you know what I learned from you? What? That when we speak from the heart, people always understand. The ceremony was moving. William told his story, spoke about Emma's importance in his life, and explained his new mission to help other children. This center, he said, pointing to the new building, was built because a 5-year-old girl taught me that love can heal any wound, and it's never too late to start over. The audience gave a standing ovation. Emma was in the front row, applauding proudly. After the ceremony, they walked together through the center's garden. Mr. William, can I ask you something? Of course. Do you regret being blind for so long? William stopped and thought carefully before answering. No, Emma. Because if I hadn't been blind, I might never have learned to truly see. What do you mean? I learned there are many forms of blindness. Some people see perfectly, but are blind to the suffering of others. Others see all colors, but are blind to the simple beauty of life. And now you see everything? Now I see what really matters. 6 months later, William received his pilot's license. On the day of his first solo flight, Emma was there to accompany him. Ready to fulfill your childhood dream? Asked the instructor. More than ready, replied William, looking at Emma, and taking the most important person in my life. The flight was magical. From up high, William could see the whole city, the neighborhood where he met Emma, his mansion, the community center they had built together. It's so beautiful, shouted Emma, delighted with the view. Yes, it is beautiful, agreed William. But do you know what's even more beautiful? What? Being able to share this with you. When they landed, Emma was radiant. You did it! You're a real pilot. We did it, Emma. Because none of this would have happened without you. Why do you always say that? Because it's true. You gave me the most precious gift one person can give another. What gift? The courage to dream again. That night, sitting in the mansion's garden watching the stars, William reflected on his journey. Emma, remember the day we met? Of course, you had fallen on the steps. And you helped me up. It was the right thing to do. But you didn't just help me get up physically, you helped me get up in every way. What do you mean? I had been down for 40 years, Emma. Down in fear, in bitterness, in loneliness. And you reached out your hand to me. My grandma always says that when we help someone, we are helped too. Your grandmother is right. You helped me, but I also discovered something important. Helping you and your grandmother, building the community center, using my wealth for good, that made me happier than all the money I made in business. So everyone was happy, exactly. William looked at Emma, illuminated by the starlight, and smiled. You know what I'm going to do tomorrow? What? I'm going to start the paperwork to officially adopt you. Really? Exclaimed Emma, jumping for joy. Really, if your grandmother agrees, of course. She will agree. She always says you are like a son to her, too. Then we're going to be a real family. We already are a real family, said Emma, hugging William. Family isn't just those who share the same blood. It's those who love and care for each other. William hugged the girl, feeling a deep gratitude for all the moments that had led them there. Emma, thank you for teaching me to see. Thank you for letting me teach you. And there in that garden where they played every day, watching the stars that William could see for the first time in 40 years, he knew that his life was finally complete. Love had healed not only his physical blindness, but especially his emotional blindness, and all thanks to a 5-year-old girl who had the courage to reach out her hand to a stranger who had fallen. In the following years, William and Emma built a life full of adventures, learning, and lots of love. The community center expanded, helping hundreds of children. Mrs. Ruth recovered completely from her surgery and moved into the mansion, where she became the grandmother William had never had. Martha continued to be the pillar of the family, but now with a smile on her face and the joy of seeing the house full of life and laughter. And William became not only a successful businessman, but especially a dedicated father, an accomplished pilot, and a man who learned that true vision comes from the heart. Every morning, waking up and seeing the sun lighting up the garden where he had first played with Emma, William was thankful for having stumbled on those steps, because that was where his true life began. End of the story. So what did you think of this touching story? Tell us in the comments if you got as emotional as we did. Leave your like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other stories that will touch your heart.